the boss battle. The ultimate test of skill, making you take everything you've learned up to that point and apply it for a climatic fight to the bitter end. We've seen it be used effectively over the past several years, and we've even seen games that base their entire existence around just those fights alone, with games like Shadow of the Colossus and Titan Souls. And now, we'll have to add a neon brother into that list, with Furi. Furi releases on July 5th for $24.99 on the PC and PlayStation 4 platforms. However, note if you're a PlayStation Plus member, you get the game free for the month of July. I played the game about 12 hours and beat the game on the PC. So, here's the question. Will nothing but bosses be one exhilarating fight after another, pumping you full of neon adrenaline? Or will it turn out to be corporate bosses, uncaring about your fun and enjoyment, and more about their own well-being? Before I answer these questions, this key was obtained from the developer for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion of the game in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Because it's the main focus, let's start with the gameplay. Furi is a series of boss battles. No open world exploration, no puzzles to solve, no going to the local forest to slay 12 wolves to get their pelts in exchange for measly experience points. No, it just jumps right into duels to the death. You've got about 8 to 10 bosses to defeat here, which may not sound like a lot at first. But looks can be deceiving, as these bosses are no pushovers, and will take you significant time to beat. Your character has 2 main weapons at his disposal. First is his trusty sword, which can unleash a series of attacks on the jailers. There's no crazy combo selection here. You have your weak attack, and a combination of weak attacks for one singular combo. You can charge up your sword to do a stronger strike, but I never came up with a situation where using that was better than just repeatedly whacking things with your smaller attacks, considering the speed in which you did things. You also have a trusty energy pistol, which can be used to repeatedly attack in one direction, or can be charged for one large energy blast as well. Both are reasonably useful, as the charge blast can knock some enemies down, and the rapid fire can get you little bits of important damage here and there. As to your in-combat movement options, you can move in every direction with nothing holding you back other than the environment. You can dash forward to jump across gaps or through certain hazards in order to dodge or reposition yourself. There's a very small cooldown with it, almost less than half a second, so you can dash around like the Flash if you so desire. But a key part of combat involves the use of the block mechanic. This shouldn't surprise you, as blocking has been a staple in action-based fighting for a while now. But there's multiple levels here on why it's important. Of course, it protects you against several types of damage, but it's more to it than that. Time your block right, and it'll regain you a small portion of your health. And there's no limit on that. You can get your entire health bar back if you get enough blocks in a row. And if you do it perfectly, you may get the chance to counter your opponent, dealing them damage in the process. Also, note the health system. You'll notice the squares under the health bars here. Those are your lives. On normal, you get 3, although you can seemingly gain them back, but your opponent will get 4, 5, 6, depending on the fight. Now, when one person has their health bar depleted, they lose a life. Then, both health gauges replenish. If you lose all your lives, you start from the beginning of the fight. There are no mid-fight checkpoints here. You gotta do it in one go. Now, there's 2 parts of combat. Well, sorta. You have your more typical combat sections, which consist of a large playing field and room to maneuver. However, the game at points will take more of a duel format, where you've got limited space to move and you can't go outside this circle. Now technically, this isn't much different from the other section, as most of the same rules apply, but usually there's a focus on close quarters melee and countering. So with the basics out of the way, how is the combat? Well, remember those samurai duel scenes? Like at the end of Kill Bill Volume 1? Yeah, Furi has that feel to it. Granted, a lot more bullets and a bit more of a color palette. This is essentially a series of duels, and they work for the most part. The bosses do all feel unique, despite the use of similar bullet hell mechanics at times. You'll face down a knight who focuses on blocking and doesn't really give you a lot of opportunities to shoot him. Then you'll duel an angel, who you'll pretty much have to shoot out of the sky. And the strongest aspect of Furi is not only in its boss variety, but in the ways that you have to go about defeating them. While your skill set is limited compared to other combat-oriented games in the genre, finding out what specific skill counters an attack of your opponent is what turns a failed set of runs into a successful one. Take for example our Angel here, and her laser attack that dives across the screen. Blocking or hitting her with the sword doesn't work here. I could do some damage with the gun, but if I fully charge the pistol and hit her, it does significant damage and knocks her down. You want to find the boss's weaknesses, and there's no elemental Pokemon chart that will tell you exactly what they are weak to. You'll have to figure it out yourself. This leads to the most important skill that you'll need to develop in Furi: pattern recognition. See, bosses change patterns and attack styles depending on what life they are on, and this in combination with the other mechanics turns the game into a reactionary game. The game pretty much screams at you to wait until your opponent does something before doing something yourself. You're the karate master who's found inner peace. Don't throw the first punch, but only punch when you have to. In fact, button mashers out there, stay far, far away from this game on its normal difficulty. This is a technical game, and hitting unnecessary combinations will not only get you in trouble, it'll get you killed. If you're a button masher, then under my review system, this game will not only give you problems, it'll be a nightmare for you. So, apply a dehancer. Now with the pattern recognition at the forefront, one might argue that this leads to trial and error gameplay. And to a certain extent, that is right. See, while there are cues that the bosses give off at times, the timing in which you need to react to some of them, it's pretty short. Some bosses will require 2 blocks, one right after another, meaning you really need to hit the button twice in a row for it to be effective. This game is about making small strides, and not being afraid to lose a couple of lives in order to understand your opponent. Once you get through a section, you'll find that if you have to start from the beginning, that section won't give you as many problems. You live, you die, and you learn. However, the amount of hits and lives you lose determines your rank on the stage. Now, those who've played the game already might be saying, wait, what are you talking about? Well, here's the thing. That ranking doesn't show up in the main gameplay screens in the primary mode. I didn't even realize it was a thing until I went to the practice mode and noticed the grades there. And noticed that I was apparently barely passing several of the fights. I do wonder why this wasn't given at the end of the fight in the main mode. It just doesn't make much sense not to. Regardless, this difficult combat is pretty good across the board, and will challenge those looking for a hard game. But it does have some flaws to it from a design standpoint, and I want to highlight the biggest one in my mind. With the bullet hell mechanics, you'll need to really focus on using the dodge mechanic, as you can go through bullets without taking damage. But there's one thing you need to quickly realize: you dodge in the direction that you're moving. You can't backstep or anything of the sort. Now that on the surface is fine, until some level designs come into play. Let's play an example. Notice me as I attempt to get through the last stage of this boss, who's throwing waves upon waves of bullets at me. Now, I'm dodging them all right at first, but you'll notice that the speed in which the waves are coming down is causing me to move towards a boundary on the screen. Which, okay, I just need to change my direction. But that's the problem. By the time I change direction, the wave is somewhat on top of me already. And that's the problem. Even with knowing that I need to be on point with not losing distance, that never seemed to make a difference. No matter what, I took damage because I couldn't dodge in the way that I wanted to, and I felt that the level design here was really the main problem. It needed to give a little bit more wiggle room. There's one other big thing that bothers me though, and that's a consistency that you'll see throughout this review. And that's the game's little moments of inconsistencies in its mechanics. Yes, consistency in its inconsistencies. Weird, I know. Take for example the blocking mechanic. For most of the game, the block mechanic regarding the white and clear indicator that visually plays is consistent with timing. You see and or hear it, and you know to smash that block button to counter. Before you say anything, yes, subtle self-promotion, I know. But in one of the last sequences of this fight, the opponent delays his attack several moments after playing these indicators. It's out of nowhere, and while keeping you on your toes for new change-ups in the formula is a good thing, this feels like something the game shouldn't have touched. You set up this rule and haven't given any reason to indicate that this rule would ever change, so popping it out now without any indicator or fanfare really feels like a dick move. In terms of inconsistencies as well, one thing that can be a little bit off-putting is the camera. The game does its best to capture all the action that you need to see on one screen. Now, this is nice on the surface. Being able to see your opponent across the screen is helpful for sure, even if you look like an ant. But there's an inconsistency here, in particular with bosses' sub-enemies off-screen. This boss fight is the prime example. Yes, that same one. Knowing when this sweeping pattern is coming is not only necessary, it's critical to avoid damage. And considering the fact that I have to move towards sides of the screen at certain points to avoid sniper fire, this feels like a slight oversight. Before ending the gameplay section, one last thing. I'll cover it in the story section, but in between missions, you'll walk to the next boss, getting exposition along the way. I'm guessing the developers were trying to recreate the journey and self-reflection portions like what you saw in Shadow of the Colossus. Let the player cool down and reflect on things before going after the next boss. Problem with this implementation is simple. It's not exploration, and it's forced. It's a linear path that you're set on, and you don't have to be active within it. Hell, most of the time I press the A button to automatically walk, which I did appreciate by the way. But without actively engaging the player into doing something to force them to think or reflect, like using the sword to find your way in Colossus, it just feels like a delay for no good reason. It just doesn't work. In the end, the gameplay is strong. It's just several little annoyances that drag it down, despite being fun as hell. Definitely the game's strongest element for sure, and its massive selling point. Now, as I mentioned, the game is available on the PS4 and the PC, so let's talk about the PC version of the game. Performance-wise, it's reasonable. The game is able to keep up the action at 60 frames per second most of the time, with minor exceptions in certain sections of the game that are playing with different lighting effects. I only noticed this, however, when Frapp's FPS counter was on screen, as playing through the game just regularly, I'm not sure I could have really seen the difference. It's maybe 4 or 5 frames off at its worst. As to the controls, the game highly recommends a gamepad. And I also highly recommend a gamepad. The mouse controls in particular with the shooting just doesn't work well for the action here in either its directional nor reticule format. And while the keyboard keys are bindable, the game is just suited for a controller. It's designed with it in mind with the dodging and emphasis on 360-degree precision movement. As to the options, they are rather basic. You can turn VSync on and off, you got volume sliders, and 2 graphical settings of nice and beautiful. Very descriptive, I know. And you can specify the resolution and refresh rate. Other than that, not much else. Next, let's talk about the presentation. Furi's look on the surface is rather beautiful. You get a variety of environments and enemy designs that you'll run across, and each of them have their own unique twist or attribute about them, but somehow keep a commonality between them. The use of curves and arcs in particular within the character designs is striking, giving a futuristic and sleek element to them. The character designer is famous for his work on Afro Samurai, so you may see some similarities there. And for the most part in battle, the presentation works and doesn't get in the way. Granted, the pulled back camera doesn't give you the chance to really appreciate some of the detail. The color scheme does do the job of complementing combat, however. Different colors can help identify certain hazards rather quickly, and whether or not you need to block, dodge, or attack the items in question. As for the cutscenes and animations, they do the job for the most part. When you get up and close with a character, you really appreciate the work put in here. The individual fibers on the bunny's face, the hair on the protagonist, it's all rather nice. You're gonna notice things here and there, however, such as the physics and clipping issues when the prisoner's hair goes through his own face. But it's not going to distract you too harshly unless you are really paying attention or it's pointed out to you. Just like I did now. Damn it. I will say that the neon colors can feel blurry at times, in particular with our main protagonist's chest, and I never thought I would say that about neon colors. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me at times, but I had some trouble focusing on some of the presentation elements here for elements that were neon colored. And I know I don't do this often, but I just want to pause the video right here. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell this mad bunny here is actually wielding. My first thought was some sort of futuristic golf club, then just some sort of really weird staff. Honestly, I still don't know what it is. All I know is that I'm really confused about its purpose and what it does because he never does anything with it. Please tell me, developers, because I'm really interested in this design. It's just plain weird. but once again we find a weird inconsistency. Now I'm not going to show the entire set of footage here, considering it's a pretty big spoiler, and was requested by the developer not to show until launch. I'm going to show you this close-up section of a screenshot of what I'm talking about though. Notice the color of the beam here, and the bullets here. Notice how both of them are blue, and notice how they can blend into each other. Again, this is an inconsistency that develops out of nowhere. It's hard to see these both, and thus the bullets that are coming at you, you may not be able to dodge. For the most part, the game is good with gameplay elements not interfering with each other, but every now and again, a hiccup forms that really stands out. Sound design is there for the most part, despite my initial reaction that the sound effects slightly lagged behind the action they were indicating. It does fight the music at first. I'd adjust the sound settings if I were you, but good situational sound effects does enhance the action in question. What's really done well here is the blocking sound effects and how easy it is to hear. The visuals help of course, but just listening to that ding in which you should block on really helped the combat out immensely. Turning it off made it a lot harder, and that's what you want in the sound design. Voice acting is also reasonable. They fit the characters' personas rather well, fitting their visual personalities. In battle, the quips are fun but reasonable to the emotions that the characters are going through. And the bunny narrator type character in particular does a great job of setting the stage, making you want to listen to him and what stories he has to tell.
She crashed through one day, frantically searching for something. They couldn't make sense of her, she was so wild, so they put her in a cage. Then you came along and they did even worse. Way worse. It all went so wrong.
The music here is catchy, with a focus on repeat rhythms with an electronic flavor to them. It does its best to complement each of the unique angles of the bosses. For example, the angel fight has a set of voices in the background that feel heavenly. Now, there is an oddity now and again, as with the sniper fight for example, I expected a slower beats per minute song due to the theme of the fight, but lo and behold, it's still upbeat. Now I still like the music, so take a listen. And finally, the story, which is a little bit confusing. Basically, our unnamed protagonist starts the game by being electric shocked as a form of torture in a mysterious jail, because nothing sets the mood to a game like a little bit of sympathy pain. He breaks out, and he runs into a strange rabbit character, who I will name the Cheshire Rabbit, mostly because he reminds me of some odd mix-up between Alice in Wonderland's White Rabbit and the Cheshire Cat. The goal of the duo is simple: get out of jail and to their freedom. What that freedom is, however, you don't know at first. You've really got no clue until you get it, because you really have no idea who the protagonist is. The jailers that you'll face routinely talk about how dangerous you are, and the writing and the presentation does a very good job of making it so that you have no idea if that fear is justified or not. Most of the storytelling is done from the Cheshire Rabbit, as he speaks cryptically about your opponents, who they are, and giving the backstory behind their characters. You'll get bits, pieces, and not much else. You're trying to piece things together, and only in the final act does the actual truth of the situation really become clear. And the game is so reliant on that last act. Luckily, that last act works. I mean, for what the game's story is, it's alright. The focus is on the gameplay and the looks, and I get that, and the whole mysterious rabbit thing is interesting to say the least. It's just that, well, I also don't really have any connection with the main protagonist, or the world in question. Mystery only goes so far, and even the small character moments that our prisoner has doesn't feel significant until the last act, because he really never gets to do much with them. By that time, it just doesn't have the impact that I think Furi was hoping for. If you need a lot of backstory in a game to connect with people, Furi is not going to be your cup of tea, so add a dehancer to the score. In the end, Furi does bring some simple yet exhilarating technical combat, and those who want to feel like a cross between a cowboy and samurai will find their perfect game here. The game will challenge you to find the way to break through your opponent's defenses, all within a set of beautiful backgrounds and environments. Now the game does have its flaws, as there's several questionable game design choices here with the set of its mechanics that it chose, and some inconsistencies about its own rule set that will drive players mad without realizing it. With all that said, Furi still clocks in at an 84 out of 100, making it a solid buy for those looking for this duel type experience, unless they are hurting for cash. But as always with large reviews on this channel, you need to take into account the enhancer system, which depends on whether or not you specifically fall into a certain category. This is designed to match up the gamer with the game, while helping them avoid experiences that they won't enjoy to begin with. Obviously, Furi is a very unique game in the genre, and it's going to cause some issues for certain types of players. Anyway, that's it for the review. Coming up next on the channel is a dating sim about tank girls, because well, we all need more tank girls in our lives apparently, and expect a video about the state of the channel in the upcoming next week. As always, I'm always working to bring you more quality content and great games, so I'm going to go and get right back to it. Later. Thanks for watching. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe if you want more content like this. In the description below, you'll find the Steam review accompanying this vid, along with social media that you can follow me on, Twitter, Google+, and Facebook groups. And if you want to support the channel, click that Patreon on the left of the screen. And remember, keep on gaming.